The morning sun rose over the golden wheat fields of New Eden. It was a beautiful planet. The sky was always blue and the air smelled sweet like flowers after rain. 12 million humans called this world their home. They had built cities and farms and schools. Children played in the streets. Families sat together for breakfast. It was a peaceful place far from the busy center of human space. Captain Alita Vasquez walked through the main spaceport of New Eden's capital city. She was a cargo hauler pilot, and her ship, the Meadowlark, was almost ready to leave. She carried food, supplies to other colonies. It was simple work, but she loved it. She loved seeing the stars and meeting new people. "Beautiful day," said her co-pilot, a young man named Thomas. Elena smiled and looked at the sky. "It's always beautiful here. That's why people come to New Eden, to get away from everything and just live." She did not know that this would be the last beautiful morning New Eden ever see. Far above the planet beyond what any eye could see, something terrible was coming. The Velari Dominion had sent their fleet. 100 crystalline warships dropped out of faster than light travel and surrounded the peaceful world. These ships were massive. Each one was bigger than a mountain. Their hulls shined like diamonds in the sunlight. The Velithari were an ancient race. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They believed that younger species were nothing more than insects, pests to be crushed. Humanity had only been traveling among the stars for 800 years. To the Velithari, humans were children playing in a garden that did not belong to them. High Sovereign Kethel stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was tall, almost 8 ft, and his body was made of living crystal. His eyes glowed with cold blue light. He looked at the planet below and felt nothing but disgust. "Begin the cleansing," he said. His voice was like ice breaking. "Should we not give them a chance to surrender?" asked one of his officers. Keith turned slowly. "Surrender? They are vermin. You do not ask vermin to surrender. You simply remove them." The weapons on all 100 ships began to charge. Energy gathered in their cores, growing brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at them. Down on the planet, Elena was walking back to her ship when the first alarm sounded. It was a sound she had never heard before, a deep, terrible wailing that seemed to come from everywhere at once. People stopped in the streets. They looked up at the sky, and then they saw them, the Velithari ships, appearing through the clouds like demons from a nightmare. They blocked out the sun. "What is that?" Thomas whispered. Elena could not answer. Her throat had gone dry. She had heard stories about the Velithari. Everyone had. They were the monsters that parents used to scare their children, but they were supposed to stay in their own space. They were not supposed to come here. The first beam of energy hit the planet's surface 50 miles from the capital. The flash was so bright that Elena had to cover her eyes. When she looked again, there was a mushroom cloud rising into the sky. A second beam hit, then a third, then dozens more. "Run!" Elena screamed. She grabbed Thomas and pulled him toward the Meadowlark. "We have to go now." The spaceport was chaos. People were screaming and running in every direction. Ships were trying to take off, but the Velithari were shooting them down one by one. Alita saw a passenger liner explode just as it left the ground. Burning pieces of metal rained down on the crowd. She reached the Meadowlark and slammed her hand on the Door control. The ramp came down and she pushed Thomas inside. Start the engines now. Alina turned and looked at the crowd. Hundreds of people were running toward the ships, mothers carrying babies, old men trying to keep up, children crying for parents they had lost in the panic. Come on, Alina shouted. Everyone get on. The ship move. They poured into the Meadowlark. The cargo ship was not meant to carry passengers. It was meant to carry food and supplies, but Alina did not care. She packed people into every space she could find, the cargo hold, the hallways, the engine room. Alina, we have to go, Thomas yelled from the cockpit. The ship is too heavy. We can barely lift off. 5 more minutes. We don't have 5 minutes. Another beam hit the city. This one was close. The ground shook so hard that Alina fell to her knees. When she looked up, she saw the spaceport control tower falling. It crashed into a row of ships and exploded. She made the hardest decision of her life. She closed the door. Outside, people were still running toward the ship. They were banging on the hall, begging to be let in. Alina could hear their screams. She would hear them for the rest of her life. Go, she said to Thomas. Her voice was barely a whisper. Get us out of here. The Meadowlark rose into the sky. Through the cockpit window, Alina watched New Eden die. The Velithari ships moved across the planet like farmers burning a field. They were systematic, thorough. They did not miss anything. Cities vanished. Balls of fire. Forests turned to ash. The oceans boiled. 12 million people lived on New Eden that morning. By sunset, the planet was nothing but a ball of glass and smoke. Alina flew as fast as she could. She expected the Velithari to chase her, to shoot her down like they had shot down all the other ships, but they did not. She did not understand why until later. They wanted a witness. They wanted someone to tell the galaxy what they had done. The Meadowlark carried 847 survivors out of 12 million people. Only 847 made it off the planet. Alina counted them herself. She walked through her ship and looked at every face. She saw the shock in their eyes, the grief, the disbelief. A little girl sat alone in the corner of the cargo hold. She was maybe 6 years old. Her face was covered in dust and tears. Where are your parents? Alina asked. Gently, the girl just shook her head. Alina sat down next to her and held her hand. She did not have words. There were no words for something like this. 3 days later, the Meadowlark reached the nearest human station. The news had already spread. Every screen in the galaxy was showing the same thing. High Sovereign Keithal had sent a message to the Galactic Concord, the alliance of 47 spacefaring species that was supposed to keep peace in the galaxy. His face appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds. His crystalline features showed no emotion. His voice was calm, almost bored. Let this be a lesson to humanity and to all young species who think they can expand without limit. New Eden is gone. Its people are dead. This is what happens when vermin forget their place. Humanity's expansion ends here. If they resist, if they seek revenge, their home world will follow. This is not a threat. It is simply the natural order of things. The message ended. The galaxy held its breath. Alina watched the message in a small room on the station. Officials had separated her from the other survivors to ask her questions. They wanted to know everything, what she saw, what she heard, what she recorded. The Meadowlark sensors had captured Everything, every weapon, every beam of fire that fell on New Eden, Alina had saved the data without even thinking about it. Now it was the most important evidence in the galaxy. What will happen now? She asked the official who interviewed her. He was a tired old-looking man with gray hair. He had been crying recently. She could see the redness in his eyes. I don't know, he said. Honestly, the conquered species are telling us to negotiate to appease the Velithari. They say we cannot win a war against them. Appease them. Alina's voice rose. They killed 12 million people. They killed children. They burned an entire world. I know. The man looked down at his hands. But the Velari have destroyed civilizations before. Species that try to fight back are now extinct. The conquered has seen it happen. They are afraid. Alina stood up. Her whole body was shaking. So that's it. We just accept this. We let them murder our people and do nothing. The man did not answer. He did not have an answer to give. Alina walked out of the room. She walked through the station until she found a window that looked out into space. She stood there for a long time, staring at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Velari were celebrating. They thought they had won. They thought humanity would break and bow down like all the other species they had terrorized. They did not know humans. They did not understand what they had done. Alina made a promise to herself. That moment, a promise to the 12 million dead, a promise to the little girl who had lost her parents. She did not know how, but she knew that humanity would answer, and when they did, the Velithari would learn what it meant to wake a sleeping giant. For now there was only silence, but it was the silence before thunder. The galaxy waited for humanity to speak. 1 day passed, then 2, then 3. Every news channel, every diplomatic office, every alien government watched and waited. They expected tears. They expected fear. They expected humanity to beg for mercy. But humanity said nothing. The conquered ambassadors grew nervous. They sent messages to Earth asking for meetings. They wanted to help humanity negotiate. They wanted to teach humans how to survive against the Velithari. Submit, they said, apologize, give the Velithari what they want. It is the only way. Earth did not respond. High Sovereign Keith watched from his throne room with growing satisfaction. He had seen this before. The silence of a broken species, the quiet acceptance of defeat. Humanity was young, but they were learning. Soon they would send their leaders to kneel before him. Soon they would accept their place in the natural order. The humans are wise, he told his advisors. They know they cannot fight us. Their silence is the silence of surrender. But Keith was wrong. He had made a terrible mistake. He had looked at humanity and seen weakness. He had seen their peaceful colonies, their trading ships, their smiling families. He had not looked deeper. He had not studied their history. If he had, he would have known that humanity's silence was not surrender. It was preparation. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a bunker that had existed for 500 years, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen sat at the head of a long table. Around him were the most powerful military leaders in human space, admirals, generals, intelligence chiefs. They had been meeting for 3 days straight. They had not slept. They had barely eaten. On the wall behind them was a picture of New Eden, the planet as it had been, green and beautiful and full of life. Below the picture were numbers: 12 million dead, 847 survivors. Admiral Chen was 60 years old. His hair was gray and his face was lined with the weight of hard decisions he had spent his whole life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Now it was here. "Show me the final count," he said. Young officer pressed a button and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a map of human space. And on that map, thousands of tiny dots began to appear, more and more of them, spreading across every system humanity controlled. "As of this morning," the officer said, "we have 500,000 warships ready for deployment." The room was silent. Even the admirals who had known the number still felt the weight of it. 500,000. For centuries, humanity had told the galaxy that their military was small, defensive, peaceful. They had shown they conquered a few hundred patrol ships, some orbital defense platforms, nothing more. The galaxy had believed them. Why would humans lie? They seemed so friendly, so harmless, but humanity remembered its own history. They remembered the wars they had fought against each other. They remembered the empires that had risen and fallen on Earth. They remembered the lesson that their ancestors had learned. In blood, never show your true strength until you need it. So they had built in secret. Every asteroid that was mined also became a shipyard. Every colony that was founded also became a fortress. Every peaceful trading company also manufactured weapons. Humanity has smiled and waved at the galaxy while building the largest military force in history. The Velari have 300,000 ships. Admiral Chen said, "Each one is bigger than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their shields are stronger." He paused and looked around the table. "But we have more ships and we have something they have never faced before." He put his hand on his chest. "We have reason to fight." Woman at the end of the table spoke up. She was Admiral Yuki Tanaka, and she would command the fleet. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with cold fire. Her brother had lived on New Eden. His wife and 2 children had been visiting him when the attack came. None of them survived. "When do we move?" she asked. "Tomorrow," Chen replied. "But first, we need to send a message." Next morning, every screen in the galaxy lit up. Every channel, every frequency, every communication device showed the same thing. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen, standing on the bridge of a massive warship. But that was not what made the galaxy gasp. Behind him, through the massive window of the bridge, was a sight that no one had ever seen before. Ships, human warships, thousands of them, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. They filled the space behind him like stars in the night sky. Battleships as big as cities, carriers that held thousands of fighters, destroyers moving in perfect formation, dreadnoughts with weapons that could crack planets. 500,000 warships, all of them pointed in one direction, toward Velari space. Admiral Chen looked into the camera. His voice was calm and steady, but there was something in it that made even the bravest warriors feel a chill. "To the Velathari Dominion," he said, "you killed 12 million of our people. You burned out colony. You murdered our children. You thought we would break. You thought we would bow. You thought humanity was weak." He paused. Behind him, the fleet began to move. The ships turned together, their engines glowing like angry suns. "You were wrong. We do not negotiate with those who slaughter innocents. We do not bow to those who call us vermin. We do not forget. We do not forgive." You wanted humanity to learn fear. Instead, you will learn why. Earth's history is written in the ashes of those who made the mistake you just made. You will learn why every species that has ever tried to destroy us has failed. You will learn what happens when you touch our families. He leaned forward slightly, and his eyes seemed to look directly at High Sovereign Keith himself. We are coming for you, not to conquer, not to rule. We are coming to teach you a lesson that you will never forget, the same lesson that tyrants on Earth learned 1,000 times, the same lesson written in the blood of every empire that thought it could break the human spirit. You can burn our worlds. You can kill our people, but you cannot kill what we are, and what we are is coming for you with 500,000 ships and the fury of 12 million souls crying out for justice. He straightened up. Behind him, the fleet was now fully in motion, a river of steel and fire flowing through space. This is not a threat, Admiral Chen said, using the same words the High Sovereign had used. It is simply the natural order of things. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings sat in stunned silence. The conquered ambassadors dropped their drinks. The news channels went wild. Military analysts scrambled to understand what they had just seen. 500,000 ships. The galaxy had thought humanity had maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000. At most. Where had they all come from? How had humans hidden an armada of this size? The answers would come later, for now there was only shock. On the Velithari home world, High Sovereign Keith watched the message 3 times. His crystalline face showed no emotion, but inside something he had not felt in 10,000 years was beginning to stir. Doubt. This is impossible, one of his advisors said. Our intelligence said they had no real military. They are farmers and traders. How can they have such a fleet? They lied. Another advisor said they have been lying for centuries. They let us think they were weak. Cathal raised his hand for silence. He was thinking, calculating 500,000 ships. Even if each human ship was smaller than his own, those numbers were dangerous. Very dangerous. Assemble the fleet, he said finally. All 300,000 ships. We will meet these humans in the void between our empires. We will crush them there and end this foolishness. He stood from his throne and walked to the window. Outside, the crystal spires of his capital city glowed in the light of their ancient sun. They are young, he said quietly. They are angry. Anger makes species do stupid things. They will charge at us with all their fury, and we will break them like we have broken so many others. In 1,000 years, no one will even remember their name. He was wrong again. But he would not learn that for several more weeks. Across human space, the fleet was gathering from every colony, every station, every hidden base. The ships came together. It was the largest military operation in human history. Families said goodbye to soldiers. Children hugged parents who might never come home. Old veterans came out of retirement to serve one more time. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Unconquered. It was a massive dreadnought, 3 mi long, and bristling with weapons. Around her, officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. In her pocket she carried a photograph, her brother and his family smiling on a sunny day on New Eden. She had looked at it 1,000 times since the attack. She had memorized every detail of their faces Admiral, her executive officer said. The fleet is assembled, all 500,000. Ships report ready. Tanaka nodded. She looked out the window at the armada. Stretching into infinity, so many ships, so many souls, all of them willing to die for what the Velari had done. Set course for Velithari space. She said. Maximum speed. Yes, Admiral. What are our rules of engagement? Tanaka thought for a moment, the rage inside her wanted to say, destroy everything. Burn their worlds like they burned ours. Show them no mercy, but that was not who humans were. That was not why they were fighting. We engaged military targets only, she said. No civilian casualties if we can help it. We are not going to become what we are fighting. The officer nodded with respect. Tanaka turned back to the window. We are going to war, she said quietly, but we are going to win it the right way for New Eden, for the 12 million, for everyone who thinks they can do this to humanity. And walk away. The fleet began to move. 500,000 ships carrying millions of soldiers, sailors, and pilots. They moved as one, like a single living creature made of steel and fire and human determination. The galaxy watched them go. Some species cheered, some prayed, some simply stared in wonder. No one had ever seen anything like this. No one had ever challenged the Velari so directly. The humans were coming, and the universe would never be the same. The human fleet moved through space like a river of stars. 500,000 ships traveling together, their engines leaving trails of light that could be seen from planets 100 light years away. They crossed through conquered territory, passing system after system, world after world. The alien species watched them pass. The Korvathi with their great whale-like bodies floated near their space stations and stared in silence. The Mandari, small and clever with 4 arms, calculated the power of the fleet and could not believe their mathematics. The Althorans, proud warriors who had once thought themselves mighty, looked at the endless stream of human ships and felt small for the first time in their history. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the unconquered, watching the stars slide past. She had not slept in 3 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her brother's face. She saw his children playing in the garden. She saw them die in fire. Admiral said. Commander Darius Cole, her second in command, you need to rest. The battle is still 2 weeks away. Tanaka did not turn from the window. I will rest when this is over. Cole was a big man with dark skin and kind eyes. He had served in the military for 30 years. He had seen war before, small conflicts with pirates and rebels, but nothing like this, nothing that mattered like this. The crew is watching you, he said gently. If they see you breaking yourself before the fight even starts, it will hurt their spirit. They need their admiral strong. Tanaka finally turned. She looked at Cole for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You are right. I will try to sleep tonight. Thank you, Admiral. She walked toward the door, then stopped. Darius, how do you do it? How do you stay so calm? You lost friends on New Eden too. Cole was quiet for a moment. I am not calm, he said. I am angry, more angry than I have ever been in my life. But anger is like fire. It can warm you or it can burn you. I choose to let it warm me, to give me strength. If I let it burn me, I will make mistakes, and I cannot afford mistakes. Not now, not when so many people are counting on us. Tanaka nodded. Wise words, my grandmother used. To say them, she survived the Third Pacific War on Earth. She knew something about fighting against impossible odds. Tanaka almost smiled. I hope I get to meet her someday. She would like you. Admiral, she always respected people who did not give up. Tanaka left the bridge and walked through the ship. Unconquered was like a city. It had hospitals and kitchens and recreation rooms. Thousands of people lived aboard, each one with their own story, their own reasons for being here. She passed a group of young soldiers sitting in a hallway cleaning their weapons. They jumped to attention when they saw her, but she waved them back down. As you were, she said. What are your names? Private James Wong, Admiral. Private Sarah Mitchell. Private Ahmed Hassan. Tanaka looked at their young faces. They could not be older than 20. Children. Really? Children who had signed up to die if necessary. Why did you join this mission? She asked. Wong spoke first. My cousin lived on New Eden. She was a teacher. She taught little kids how to read. His voice cracked slightly. She was the kindest person I ever knew. Mitchell nodded. I did not know anyone there, but I saw the videos. I saw what they did. I could not sit at home and do nothing. Hassan held up his rifle. My father told me that when evil happens and good people do nothing, evil wins. I am not going to let evil win. Tanaka felt something warm in her chest. Pride. Hope. These young soldiers understood what they were fighting for. Not conquest, not glory, justice. Your families would be proud of you, she said. I am proud of you. Whatever happens in the coming weeks, remember that we fight for something that matters. We fight for the 12 million. We fight for every species the Velithari have ever crushed. We fight because it is right. She moved on, leaving the soldiers with renewed determination in their eyes. Meanwhile, the fleet was not moving. Through empty space, Velithari scouts had been tracking them since they left human territory, small, fast ships that stayed at the edge of sensor range. Watching and reporting. High Sovereign Keith received updates every hour. He sat in his war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the human fleet position. His commander stood around him waiting for orders. They come straight at us without hesitation. They are fools. Another replied, no species has ever attacked the Dominion directly. They do not understand what they face. Keithall said nothing. He was studying the human formation. It was unusual. The ships did not fly in the rigid patterns that other species used. They moved in flowing groups that seemed almost random but always maintained perfect coordination, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. Send a patrol to test them, he said finally. 50 ships. I want to see how they fight. 50 ships against 500,000, my lord. They will not engage 50 ships with their entire fleet. They will send a small force to respond. I want to see that force. I want to understand how humans fight before the real battle begins. Patrol was sent. 50 crystalline warships, each one crewed by veteran warriors who had destroyed entire civilizations. They moved to intercept the human fleet at the edge of the Narathis system. Admiral Tanaka was on the bridge when the alert came. Contact the sensor officer reported. 50 Velithari vessels bearing 27 Mark IV. They are moving to intercept 50 ships. Call frowned. That is not an attack force. That is a probe. They want to test us. Then let us give them something to think about. Tanaka. Study the tactical display. Send the 7th Scout Group 100 destroyers. Tell them to engage and destroy. Cole raised an eyebrow. 2-1 odds. Against Velithari ships, that is still risky, I know, but I want the Velithari to see something. I want them to see that we are not afraid, that we will meet them head-on no matter the cost. The 7th Scout Group broke away from the main fleet, 100 human destroyers, smaller and faster than the massive Velithari warships. They accelerated toward the enemy patrol at full speed. Commander Lin Wei led the group from her ship, the Swift Justice. She was young. For a commander, only 32, but she had graduated top of her class at the military academy. This would be her first real battle. All ships weapons free, she ordered. Remember your training. Target their shield generators. First, work in pairs. Never let them isolate one of us. The Velari patrol saw the human ships coming and formed defensive line, their weapons charged, glowing with deadly energy. They expected the humans to slow down, too. Circled to look for weakness. The humans did not slow down. They hit the Velithari line like a hammer hitting glass. The human destroyers split into pairs at the last moment, each pair focusing fire on a single enemy ship. Their weapons were smaller than the Velithari guns, but they fired faster. Much faster. Beams of energy and missiles struck the crystal ships from multiple angles at once. The Veli shields flared and flickered. They were designed to stop massive single impacts, not dozens of smaller hits coming from different directions. The human engineers had studied Vether technology for decades, waiting for this moment. They knew exactly where to aim. First ship exploded 3 minutes into the battle, then another, then another. They are adapting their shields, one of Lin's officers shouted. Then we adapt. Faster, all ships switch to pattern. Delta, rotate firing frequencies. The human ships changed their attack pattern. Without missing a beat, they had practiced this thousands of times in simulations. The Velith tried to keep up, but they were not used to enemies who changed tactics in the middle of a fight. For 10,000 years, their enemies had been predictable, easy. Humans were not easy. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, all 50 Velithari ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans lost 12 destroyers, 12 ships, over 1,000 lives. Commander Lin Wei looked at the wreckage floating in space. She had won, but she did not feel like celebrating. Those were the first human ships lost in this war. They would not be the last. Send a message to the Admiral, she said quietly. Mission accomplished. Enemy patrol destroyed on the Unconquered. Admiral Tanaka received the report. She read the casualty numbers and closed her eyes for a moment. 12 ships, Hull said. That is better than I expected. Every ship had a crew. Every crew member had a family. Tanaka opened her eyes. But they did not die for nothing. The Velithari just learned something important. What is that, Admiral? They learned that their shields can be broken. They learned that humans do not fight the way other species fight. She looked at the tactical display where the human fleet continued its march toward Velari space, and when we meet their main fleet, they will learn even more. In his war room, High Sovereign Keith received the news of the patrol's destruction. For a long moment he said nothing. His commanders stood in uncomfortable silence. Finally he spoke. They lost 12 ships to destroy 50. Of ours, that is a ratio of 4-1 in their favor, my lord. They had twice as many ships. The numbers I can do mathematics, Keith said coldly. Even if we account for numbers, they performed better than any species we have ever faced. Their tactics were unconventional. Their coordination was remarkable. They adapted to our defenses in real time. He stood and walked to the main display, which showed the human fleet still moving toward his empire. I have ruled for 10,000 years because I do not underestimate my enemies. I will not start now. He turned to his commanders. Assemble the full fleet, 300,000 ships. We will meet them at the gate at the edge of our space, and we will not hold anything back. Yes, my lord, we will crush them. Keith did not respond. For the first time in a very long time, he was not certain of victory. The humans had surprised him once. He would make sure they did not surprise him again. But deep down, in a place he would never admit existed, a small voice whispered a warning. These humans were different. They fought with a fire he had never seen before, not the fire of conquest or pride, the fire of grief, the fire of beings who had nothing left to lose. That fire, the voice whispered, might be impossible to extinguish. The place was called Keith's Gate. It was a region of space at the very edge of Velari territory, named after the High Sovereign himself. Here, thousands of years ago, he had stopped an invasion by a species whose name was now forgotten. Their entire civilization had been erased from history. Now the gate would see battle again. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the Unconquered and looked at the enemy fleet through the main display. 300,000 Velithari warships hung in space like a wall of crystal and death. Each ship was bigger than any human vessel. Each one carried weapons that could destroy cities with a single shot. Behind her, 500,000 human ships waited in formation. They were smaller, yes, less powerful individually, yes, but there were more of them, and inside each one were men and women who had volunteered to be here, who had chosen to fight. Admiral Commander Cole said softly, "The fleet is ready. All ships report green." Tanaka nodded. She had not slept the night before. Instead, she had written letters to the families of every crew member on her ship, letters that would only be sent if she died, letters that said how proud she was of their loved ones, how brave they were, how their sacrifice mattered. She hoped none of those letters would need to be sent, but she knew better. Open a channel to the fleet, she said. Channel open. Admiral Tanaka took a deep breath. 500,000 ships were listening, millions of souls waiting for her words. This is Admiral Tanaka. In a few minutes we will engage the Velithari fleet. Some of us will not survive this battle. I would not lie to you about that, but I want you to know why we are here. She paused, gathering her thoughts. 6 weeks ago, the Velithari destroyed New Eden. They killed 12 million of our people. Mothers, fathers, children, teachers, doctors, farmers, people who had done nothing wrong, people who just wanted to live their lives in peace. The Velithari thought we would do nothing. They thought we would accept it. They thought we were weak. Today we prove them wrong. We are not here for revenge. We are not here to become the monsters they are. We are here because some things cannot be forgiven. We are here because the galaxy needs to know that humanity will not bow to tyrants. We are here for the 12 million who cannot fight for themselves. Fight hard. Fight smart. Look after each other, and when this is over, we will go home. We will hold our families. We will tell them what we did here today for New Eden, for Earth, for humanity. She cut the channel around. Her officers wiped tears from their eyes. Even Cole, the steady rock who never showed emotion, had to look away. For a moment, Admiral the censor officer said, "The Velithari fleet is moving. They're coming toward us." Tanaka straightened her uniform. "Then let us meet them. All ships advance. Execute attack pattern Omega." The human fleet surged forward, 500,000 ships moving as one, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. On the Velithari flagship, High Sovereign Keith watched the humans come. He had expected them to wait to form a defensive position and let him attack. Instead, they were charging directly at his fleet. "Bold," he admitted. "Foolish but bold, my lord. Their formation is unusual. They are not following standard combat patterns. Standard patterns are for species that do not know how to fight. The humans have something else in mind. No matter. Our shields will hold. Our weapons will break them. Begin the engagement." Velithari fleet opened fire. 300,000 ships releasing their weapons at once. The space between the two fleets filled with beams of energy and streams of projectiles. It was like a storm of light, beautiful and terrible at the same time. The human fleet did not try to block the attack. They could not. Their shields were not strong enough. Instead, they scattered like birds avoiding a predator. The human ships broke formation and flew in chaotic patterns that made them almost impossible to hit. And then they hit back. Human ships worked in groups of 5, focusing their fire on single Velithari vessels. They aimed for the same spots that the 7 scout group had targeted during the first skirmish: shield generators, weapon ports, engine housings. Each shot alone did little damage, but together, firing in perfect coordination, they could crack the crystal hulls. The first Velithari battleship died 15 minutes into the battle. Its shields failed under the concentrated fire of 50 human destroyers. Its hull cracked. Its reactors exploded. Thousands of warriors died in an instant. Keith felt a shock he had not experienced in millennia. One of his ships destroyed, a ship that had survived 100 battles, killed by these young upstarts. "Increase power to shields," he ordered. "Close the distance. Make them fight us." Directly, the Vathi fleet pushed forward, trying to get close enough to use their superior size and firepower. But the humans would not let them. They kept moving, kept darting around, kept hitting from angles that could not defend. Admiral Tanaka watched the battle from the bridge of the Unconquered. Her ship was in the middle of the fighting, surrounded by chaos and death. Energy beams flashed past the windows. Explosions bloomed in the distance. The ship shook from near misses. Carrier Group 7 moved to Sector 9 and provide cover for the damaged cruisers. Destroyer Squadron 12 target that cluster of enemy ships on the left. Flank Dreadnought Division 3 with me. We are going for their command formation. She was playing the battle like a musician plays an instrument. Every ship had its role. Every movement had its purpose. She could see the whole picture in her mind, adjusting and adapting faster than the Velithari could respond. Commander Cole stood beside her, relaying orders to the fleet. His voice was calm, but his heart was pounding. He had never seen anything like this. The scope of it, the violence of it, ships dying by the dozen every minute. Admiral, we are losing ships faster than projected. Current losses at 42,000. I know Tanaka's face was hard as stone. But look at them, look at the Velithari. They are losing faster, it was true. The human tactics were working, the Velari. Ships designed to fight enemies who stood still and traded fire could not handle opponents who moved like water. For every human ship destroyed, 2 or 3 Velithari vessels died, but it was not enough, not yet. Cole signaled the unconquered battle group, we are going to do something crazy. Admiral, we are going to ram their flagship. Cole stared at her. Admiral, that is suicide. No, it is strategy. Tanaka pointed at the display. Their flagship is the center of their formation. Keithal is on that ship. If we can take him out, their fleet will lose coordination. They will panic. But if we ram them, we will not ram with the whole ship. We will get close, punch through their shields and board them. Human soldiers fighting Velithari warriors hand to hand inside their own flagship. Cole was silent for a long moment, then slowly he nodded. The Marines have been training for close combat since the war started. They have been waiting for a chance like this. Then give them their chance. Signal the battle group. We move in 5 minutes. Unconquered and 30 other ships broke away from the main battle. They pushed toward the center of the Velithari formation where Cathral's flagship dominated the battlefield. Velithari ships tried to stop them, but the human vessels were too fast, too coordinated. They danced through the enemy fire like shadows. Keith saw them coming. What are they doing? They cannot possibly think they can attack my ship directly, my lord. They are not slowing down, they are going to. The Unconquered hit the flagship's shields at full speed. The impact was tremendous. Both ships shook like they had been struck by a god, but the human ship had been built for this. Its forward section was reinforced, hardened for exactly this kind of attack. Theory shields flickered and died. The Unconquered's hull scraped against the crystal surface of the flagship, tearing a hole in the enemy ship's side, boarding parties away. Tanaka shouted. Hundreds of human Marines poured out of the Unconquered and into the Velari flagship. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed to crack crystal. They had trained for this. They had dreamed of this. Now they would fight for this. The battle inside the flagship was brutal. Velithar warriors were tall and strong. Their crystal bodies hard to damage, but the humans were fast and furious. They fought in teams, covering each other, never letting the enemy isolate one of them. Sergeant Maria Santos led her squad through the corridors of the alien ship. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with inner light. The air smelled strange, like metal and electricity around every quarter. Velithari warriors waited to kill them. Gornade, she shouted. One of her soldiers threw an explosive device into a group of enemies. The explosion shattered their bodies like glass. Move, keep moving. We have to reach the bridge. They fought their way deeper into the ship. They lost soldiers with every corridor, every room, but they kept going. They would not stop. They could not stop. High Sovereign Keith heard the fighting getting closer to his throne room. He stood from his command chair and picked up a weapon he had not used in 3,000 years, a blade made of perfect crystal, sharp enough to cut through anything. They dare to enter my ship, he said. They dare to challenge me in my own home. These humans are more than fools, they are mad. The doors to the throne room exploded. Human soldiers poured in, firing their weapons. Cathral's personal guards fell, one by one, and then there was only him, standing alone against the invaders. Sergeant Santos stepped forward. Her armor was damaged. Her squad was down to 5 soldiers, but her eyes were clear and cold. High Sovereign Keith, she said, your fleet is dying. Your ship is ours. Surrender and we will spare your life. Keith laughed. It was a cold, terrible sound. Surrender. I have ruled for 10,000 years. I have destroyed civilizations. I have crushed species so thoroughly that the galaxy forgot they ever existed, and you think I will surrender to vermin? He raised his blade. Come then, human, let us see what you are made of. Santos raised her rifle. I am made of the same thing as the 12 million people you murdered. I am made of New Eden. I am made of humanity. She fired. The battle for the flagship lasted 2 hours. When it was over, Keith was dead, his crystal body shattered on the floor of his own throne room. The Velithari command structure collapsed. Ships that had fought in perfect coordination for millennia began to scatter. Admiral Tanaka, bloody but alive, stood on the bridge of the captured flagship and looked at the battle still raging outside. The Velar fleet was breaking, ships were retreating, running. Admiral Cole said through the communication system. He was still on the unconquered final count. We lost 89,000 ships, 4.2 million dead, but the Velithari, they only have 40,000 ships left. They are running. Tanaka closed her eyes. 89,000 ships, millions of her people. The cost was enormous. The grief would last for generations. But they had won. Signal all ships, she said. Her voice was tired but strong. Do not pursue. Let them run. We are not here to exterminate them. We are here to deliver a message. What message, Admiral? Tanaka opened her eyes and looked at the stars. That humanity will not be broken. That we protect our own. That anyone who touches us will face consequences beyond their imagination. She walked toward the window and looked out at the battlefield. Thousands of ships, human and Velithari, drifted in the darkness. So much death, so much sacrifice. We have won this battle, she said quietly. Now we need to win the peace. The battle was over, but the war was not finished. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the captured Velithari flagship and watched her fleet regroup. They had won an impossible victory, but the cost had been terrible. 89,000 ships lost, 4.2 million human lives ended in the cold darkness of space. She thought about each one of them, the young soldiers she had met in the hallway, Commander Lin Wei and her scout group, the Marines who had fought and died, taking this very ship, Sergeant Santos, who had killed the High Sovereign, himself had not survived the battle. She had been struck down by a Velithari guard just moments after Keithol fell. Admiral Commander Cole's voice came through the communication system. What are your orders? Tanaka took a deep breath. We move forward. The Velithari still have 40,000 ships. They still have their home world. They could come after us again in 100 years. Are we going to destroy them completely? No. Tanaka's voice was firm. We could. We have the strength now, but that is not who we are. That is not what the 12 million would want. She turned to face the bridge crew. They were a mix of human officers and captured Velithari crew members who had surrendered. The aliens looked at her with fear in their eyes. They expected death. They expected the humans to do to them what they had done to so many others. We are going to their home world. Tanaka said, we are going to end this war the right way. With terms, with justice, not with genocide. The human fleet, now 411,000 ships strong, moved deeper into Velari space. They passed planets and stations that had never seen an enemy force in their history. The Velithari on those worlds watched in horror as the human armada flew overhead. They expected fire and death. None came. The humans did not attack a single civilian target. They did not bomb cities or destroy infrastructure. They simply flew past. Their message clear: we could hurt you, but we choose not to. Words spread through the Dominion. The humans were different. They were not like the Velithari. They did not kill for pleasure or power. They killed only when they had to. 2 weeks after the battle, the human fleet reached the Velithari home world. It was called Kathra Prime, a beautiful planet of crystal spires and ancient cities. Billions of Velithari lived there, the oldest civilization in the known galaxy. Admiral Tanaka took a shuttle down to the surface. She brought only a small honor guard and Commander Cole. The Velithari could have tried to kill her. They could have fought to the last being. Instead, they sent a delegation to meet her. The new leader of the Velithari was called Sovereign Fall. He was young by Velithari standards, only 2,000 years old. He had opposed Keithal's attack on New Eden, but his voice had been ignored. Now, with Keith dead, the other leaders had chosen him to negotiate. They met in a great hall made of living crystal. The walls sang with harmonics that had echoed for 10,000 years. Troll stood at one end, surrounded by his advisors. Tanaka stood at the other with only Cole at her side. Admiral Tanaka, Troll said. His voice was softer than Keith's had been, less cold. You have defeated us. Our fleet is broken. Our High Sovereign is dead. You have every right to destroy us completely. Why have you not done so? Tanaka walked forward until she stood face to face with the tall alien. Her uniform was still stained with blood from the battle. She had not changed it. She wanted them to see what this war had cost, because destruction is not justice, because killing every Velithari will not bring back the 12 million people you murdered, because becoming you would be a defeat worse than any battle. The tilted his head. I do not understand. In our history, the strong destroy the weak. This is the natural order. It is not our order. Humans have fought many wars. We have seen what happens when vengeance has no limit. We have seen civilizations burn because hatred could not be contained. We have learned painfully that there must be another way. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She activated it and a holographic image appeared between them. It showed New Eden as it had been before the attack: the golden wheat fields, the blue sky, the children playing in the streets. 12 million people lived on this world, Tanaka said. They were farmers and teachers and doctors. They had families, and your High Sovereign murdered them all because he thought they were vermin. Pharaoh looked at the image for a long moment. He said nothing. I did not support the attack, he said finally. I argued against it. Keith would not listen. He believed humanity was weak, that you would accept this defeat and bow to us. He was wrong. Yes, he was wrong. met her eyes. What are your terms? Admiral, what do you want from us? Tanaka lowered the holographic image. First, full reparations to the survivors of New Eden. Financial support for every person who escaped, aid in rebuilding their lives. Agreed. Second, withdrawal from 3 systems along our border. These systems will become neutral zones, belonging to neither humanity nor the Dominion. Agreed. Third, Tanaka's voice grew harder. Monument on this planet here in your capital city, a monument bearing the names of every human killed on New Eden. Every man, every woman, every child, so that your people will remember what was done, so that they will never forget the cost of arrogance. Fael was silent for a long moment. Monument on the Velithari home world. Honoring human dead, it was a humiliation beyond anything his people had ever experienced. They had built monuments to their own victories, not to the suffering of their enemies. But they had lost. They had started a war they could not finish, and now they had to pay the price. Agreed, he said, quietly. And finally Tanaka said, a promise, a vow spoken before the entire galaxy, that the Velithari will never attack a human world again, that if anyone harms our people, they will face the same fate your fleet faced at the gate. Not vengeance, not genocide, but overwhelming response until the threat is ended. Fael nodded slowly. You ask us to change who we are. For 10,000 years we have dominated through fear. You ask us to live differently. I ask you to live better. Tanaka's voice softened slightly. You are not evil, Sovereign. Your people are not evil, but you followed a leader who made terrible choices that cost millions of lives on both sides. You can choose a different path now, or you can wait for another species to rise up and do to you what we could have done. Negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, the Velari agreed to every term. They had no choice. Their fleet was broken, their leader dead, their pride shattered, but something else happened. During those 3 days, something unexpected. The Velari began to talk to the humans, not as enemies but as curious strangers. They asked questions about human history, about human art, about human families. They learned that the species they had dismissed as vermin had a rich culture of their own, poetry and music and stories that stretched back thousands of years. And the humans learned about the Velithari. They learned that beneath the cold crystal exterior were beings capable of love and loyalty and even regret. They learned that many Velithari had opposed the attack on New Eden, that there were voices of reason even in the ancient Dominion. The war ended not with hate, but with the first fragile seeds of understanding. 1 year later, Admiral Yuki Tanaka returned to human space. She had been promoted to Fleet Admiral, the highest rank in the military, but she did not feel like celebrating. The war had taken something from her that she could never get back: her certainty, her peace. She had one more duty to perform. The planet had been renamed Remembrance. Once it was a dead world, empty and lifeless. Now it was being transformed into a garden. Trees were being planted. Lakes were being filled. The survivors of New Eden had chosen to rebuild here to create something beautiful from their pain. Admiral Tanaka walked through the memorial park at the center of the main settlement. The park was not yet finished, but its shape was clear. Paths wound through gardens that would someday bloom with flowers. At the center was a Great wall of black stone, and on that wall were names, 12 million names, every person who had died on New Eden. She found the name she was looking for, her brother, his wife, his 2 children. She traced the letters with her finger and felt tears running down her face. I am sorry, she whispered. I am sorry I could not save you. I am sorry it took so long to bring justice, but we did it. Velathari know what they did. The galaxy knows what happened. Your names will never be forgotten. She stood there for a long time, alone with her grief. Finally, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw Captain Elena Vasquez walking toward her. Elena, who had escaped New Eden on the Metalark. Elena, who had started all of this by surviving, by bringing the truth to the galaxy. Admiral Elena said they are ready for the ceremony. Tanaka wiped her eyes and nodded. Let us go. The ceremony was held in a field near the memorial. Thousands of people had gathered, survivors of New Eden, soldiers who had fought in the war, families of those who had not come home, leaders from Earth and the colonies, even some conquered ambassadors, species who had once told humanity to submit. Admiral Tanaka stood on a small platform and looked out at the crowd. She saw grief in their faces. She saw pride. She saw hope. 1 year ago she began. We lost 12 million souls. 1 year ago we thought our hearts would never heal. 1 year ago the galaxy thought humanity was finished. She paused and looked at the sky. It was blue and clear, just like New Eden's sky had been. We are not finished. We will never be finished because humanity does not give up. We do not bow to tyrants. We do not forget our dead. We carry them with us in our hearts, in our memories, in the very fabric of who we are. The people of New Eden died because a cruel leader thought they did not matter. Today we prove him wrong. Today we build a world in their honor. Today we show the galaxy that love is stronger than hate, that hope is stronger than fear, that life will always find a way. She stepped down from the platform and walked to a small patch of bare earth at the edge of the field. Elena Vasquez met her there holding a small tree sapling. This tree, Tanaka said, is from Earth, from the same forests that our ancestors walked through 1 million years ago. It will grow here on remembrance, and it will be the first of many. Someday this whole world will be a garden, a living memorial to those we lost. Elena knelt and placed the sapling in the earth. Together she and Tanaka covered its roots with soil. Around them, children began to play. Children born after the attack, named for grandparents and aunts and uncles who had died on New Eden. The galaxy was watching. Trillions of beings across 1,000 worlds saw the ceremony. They saw humans planting a tree on a world they had built from nothing. They saw a species that had been attacked, that had fought back, and that had chosen mercy over vengeance. The Velari watched too. On Kathra Prime, the monument was being constructed, a great pillar of black stone in the heart of their capital, bearing 12 million human names. Young Velathari walked past it and stopped to read. They learned about the people their ancestors had killed. They learned that those people had been real, had been loved, had mattered, and somewhere in the crowd on remembrance, the little girl who Elena had found in the cargo hold of the meadowwork held her new mother's hand and smiled. She was 7 years old now. She did not remember much about the attack, but she remembered Elena's face. She remembered being saved. She looked up at the sky and saw a future full of possibility. The war was over, the dead were honored, the survivors were healing, and humanity, young and fierce and full of fire, had taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as victims, as a people who would never forget, who would never give up, who would always fight for what mattered. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and it would not forget either.